Welcome to Solutions Rising. I'm Rachel Branch, and I am honored, and it is a pleasure to welcome Dr. Tom Irwin to talk about paint recycling disposal in the context of another way to fight and stop what you, our audience, have heard me continually call climate catastrophe. This is an aspect of climate catastrophe that has not been mentioned on Solutions Rising before. And I am grateful that Dr. Irwin is joining us for this very important discussion. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Rachel. Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure, such a pleasure to have you here. We usually start off with our audience, letting our audience know a little bit about our guest. And I would like it if you would talk about your heritage, your background, your experience, or whatever you choose.
I guess to give them some context, they probably would like to know that I was a chemical engineer, and I did that for 29 years. And in the last 15 of that, I developed multiple chemical sensitivities, which ultimately compelled me to leave engineering and move to something else. And because I had learned an awful lot about chemical sensitivities, I thought maybe if I got a license, I might be able to help people. So I went back to school and got my degree in medicine and practiced medicine for 20 years.
That's astounding to me. And did the chemical sensitivity result from your work in chemicals? Or
well, I'm sure it was a bunch of things. It was, the genetics, because there's allergies in my family, and the chemicals themselves, and which chemicals that I got exposed to, and so forth. So it was a multifactorial thing.
And yeah. I think a lot of us are affected by that. I can't be around somebody smoking, and grew up with asthma, and I'm sure that was affected by all the people around me smoking. Everybody was smoking then.
Right.
So now we're going to talk today about paint recycling, paint, how do you dispose of it? Would you segue into telling our audience about how this became something that you're very involved in, and how you became involved in it?
Sure. Well, after I retired from all that I had done, I wanted to give back to the community. And so I thought if there was an aspect of Dalton's community that needed some engineering and business experience, that would be a great fit. So I joined the Dalton Waste Management and Recycle Committee. And at that time, they were in the throes of trying to figure out how they could reduce the total waste going to the landfill. So I did some homework. I visited the transfer station in Clifton Park, New York, which is just massive. And during the tour of that, I ran across some white bins, and I asked the manager who was giving me a tour what that was all about, and he told me it was paint care and described the program. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. They will take the paint back in these bins and then recycle it. So I said, this seems almost too good to be true. So I did some homework. I went to Vermont and Connecticut and New York, visited several of the retail stores to see whether they had any complaints, and none of them did. They all loved it because it was all the small retail stores. And since they don't care where the paint came from, they were doing a great job because they were getting all this foot traffic, extra foot traffic, because Home Depot and Lowe's and Walmart don't take it. So all of that paint comes back through their store. So the big stores were happy because they didn't have to deal with this, and the little stores are happy because they got the increased foot traffic. So everybody was feeling like they, were getting the needed piece of the pie that they wanted.
So you're saying that if people or businesses have paint left over, they could take it back to paint stores, and paint stores will take it to these.
The paint store doesn't actually have to do anything other than put it in bins, and they will take. They may. Well, there's a couple of ways. If you've got a small quantity, like 5 or 6 cans that you want to get rid of, the store will take them per day, 6 cans. If you've got a large load, like 100 gallons of paint that you want to get rid of, all you have to do is call Paint Care. They'll send out a special truck to your place of business. You can put all the paint on the truck. It just goes away for you.
Wow. I'm just thinking of, you know, I've had to clean out so many homes, but I remember cleaning out what was my mother's that became mine, and the paints on the shelves in the basement that
Yep.
used to be for root cellars. Now we're loaded with old paints, and they're dried up and they're stuck, and you can't even get the tops off.
Right.
So those, I'm trying to think of how I know I didn't throw them in the dump, how I dispose of them, but I have not been aware of this until you and I talked about this recently.
Yeah. Well, if your paint is fully dried, there's really no way to recycle it. It ends up having to go to be landfilled. But if it is still liquid and in the original can with the original label, it can be sent to a reprocessing plant. They'll reblend it and put in more additives or whatever it needs, and it can be brought back up to the standard of new paint.
Hard paint can't be softened with,
No.
it just can't. Wow.
Because it's like it's cured on the wall.
Oh. Duh. It's simple to understand. I mean, this is really, in some ways, fascinating to me because I never was scientifically oriented to find out, especially, and of course, recycling and reuse and redisposal are very important, particularly today.
Sure.
Anything and everything we can do to save our planet, frankly.
Right.
So then you proceeded, what did you do? Start around the New England? How did you get this going?
Well, my investigation turned up that it was Patricia Haddad, the representative from Bristol County, who had put the bill forward in the previous legislatures. So I gave her a call and I discussed the bill with her. And it quickly became apparent that the problem was not enough people knew about the possibility of paint being recyclable. And so there was no real demand there. And the reason that the bill had not passed in the previous 6 sessions of the Mass legislature is because there was really no call.
Wow.
And you'd say, well, geez, that seems crazy. Well, why wouldn't they, pass this bill? It seems like a no-brainer. And the problem is simple. There are somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 bills put forward each legislative session, and that's just not humanly possible to, work your way through. So what they do is they say, well, we're only going to be able to do like 5% of that. So they figure we'll go and address the bills that save the state the most money, or have the most social outcry in demanding to have this particular legislation. And if we go and triage the list that way, we'll probably end up with about 400 bills, which is about what we can deal with during one legislative session, which is 2 years. And that's the way it operates. So paint only saves $2 million a year, which is huge for you and I, but is really small change for the state, who deals in billions. And as I was saying, there's not much social demand. And what I discovered while I was out collecting petition signatures, petition asking representatives and senators to become co-sponsors of the bill, is less than 2% of people even knew about it. In fact, in states that already have the bill, I would say 30% of that population doesn't even know that they already have the law. So there's a real knowledge deficit, maybe we should call it that, about or awareness about the potential for this kind of legislation.
Is this legislation that can also be adopted on the local level in another form? So you're going locally up to the state, or is this something that really needs to be state legislation?
Well, the reason that it's interesting, the way the bill was generated was that all parties to the bill, that would be the manufacturers, the retailers, consumers, and the government, all sat in a room between 2002 and I think it's about 2006, 7. And hashed out what they could all live with. What was a fair breakup of responsibilities, what were fair costs and so forth. And that was how the bill was generated. But the haggling went on for 4 or 5 years before they could get something that all parties basically shrugged their shoulders and said, yeah, I can live with that. And that's what's become law.
So it's not necessary on the local level because you already got it.
Well, it's going to, yeah, it's statewide. But that said, in New York, I'm not sure which particular product, but there is one county in New York that has adopted an environmental or a extended producer responsibility law just for that county. And so, you know, what that demonstrates is, yeah, you're right. It doesn't have to be the entire state. It could be just a county. But the reason that the law is necessary isn't because some party to the law doesn't want the law, but rather as protection to the portion of the process, the program, that does the hauling and reprocessing, where it collects the 75 cents. I should mention that as well, is that this whole program is funded because people will pay an extra 75 cents per gallon when they buy the paint, or $1.75 for 5 gallons, and that covers everything. And you'd say, well, it should be 5 times as much. It should be like $3.75 for 5 gallons. No, they're not trying to make money. They're just trying to break even. But to collect that money requires the protection of a law. Otherwise, an antitrust suit can be brought against that nonprofit organization called Paint Care.
And that also sounds like, you know, the nickel or the dime for recycling cans. It's another way to help save our environment.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think people are frustrated with trying to get rid of their oil-based paints, even more so than latex, because they have to wait until one day a year where they can bring the latex back, and they've got, or not, oil-based, and they only have a 3-hour window between 9 and 12, and they have to sign up and they have to wait in lines, and you know, if something pops up, well, and they're going to have to hold on to that for another year in their basement.
Why is that? Why is latex and oil-based separated?
Well,
I mean, oil-based is probably harder to get rid of.
latex is water-based paint.
Is what?
Water-based paint.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And so the amount of toxic materials, toxicity, that latex has is minimal compared to oil-based paints. But the last bits of toxicity are eliminated when you open up that can and let the volatiles evaporate. So that's why they want the solids to be put, you know, solid latex to be put in the landfill. But you can't really dry out, you know, your varnishes and shellacs and all that kind of stuff. So, in fact, I think if you do, there's some degradation products that are still a problem. But at any rate, that's why you have to take your oil-based paints and bring it back to a household hazardous waste day. And your latex, you can just paint out onto a cardboard and then throw all of that away.
This is fascinating. This is a topic I never would have thought of bringing on our program today, and a topic that really does have effects environmentally. And of course, you and I were mentioning a little bit about environmental justice, and when you see mostly in inner cities or low-income areas, those are paying the price for waste and waste disposal. And obviously, for me, I lived in Bridgeport, Connecticut for 23 years with, you know, all kinds of waste reduction and supposedly waste to energy, and those people, the majority of low-income people of color who were seeing the effects of the pollution that was happening along the Long Island Sound. So there is an environmental justice aspect to this that is very important, but also I'm fascinated that you picked this and picked paint, and would you tell the connection with picking paint and its, what else it could spearhead into?
Sure. Well, it was apparent that this is actually an approach to waste. And you might pick paint as your first one in line, but there are many things that lend themselves to this style of cooperative effort to resolve the waste issue at the end of life of the product. Other things would be mattresses, solar panels, potentially pesticides. The Product Stewardship Council of Massachusetts and the Product Stewardship Institute have identified or tracking 18 different products that have product stewardship laws or EPR laws. Product stewardship is more of a cooperative law. EPR is more of a law where they might find an industry that's not responding to, desires and efforts to, pick up the problem and let's work on it together, and they don't want any part of it. So they say, okay, well then you're going to have full responsibility for it. So that's an EPR kind of law. Product stewardship is where everybody's got their piece. Anybody who touches that product during the life of the product has a piece. And paint's an example. You've got the consumer has a piece, the government's got a piece, the retailer's got a piece, and the manufacturer's got a piece. But everybody does their little bit and solves it. So, but with product stewardship and EPR, separate tools, but to address the same thing, waste elements. There are 18 different ones that have been identified and already have laws in the United States.
Geez, that's terrific. Did you have abstinence or pushback when you started doing this and getting petitions? And
yes, there's, depending on where you're trying to collect signatures, it's an interesting experience. Many people feel, I was going door to door for a while, and the big issue there was solar panel salesmen have tainted the water so badly that people don't even want to come to the door. They
tainted the water trying to sell?
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
They push hard, and they don't like the word no, and so people get frustrated, and understandably so. And so they end up just not wanting to even go to the door. It's like the door is, they put up the cross and say, no way I'm going to the door for somebody that I don't know. And in other environments, you'll hear a range of commentary, but I don't have any paint anymore in my basement. So it's not, I don't need to sign anything, and the like. On a few occasions, there are people that are worried that the retailer will be disadvantaged, and they are uncomfortable. Even when I share that the retailers are on board with this, they just, nope, they're worried about the retailer and don't want to disadvantage them. So those are people that don't sign.
And that's probably because there's so much out there pushing people to
Right.
sign this, sign that, do that, believe this, believe, and who do you trust? And
Absolutely.
you come along and you're telling the truth and say the retailers are with us, pick up the phone.
Right. Right.
That might be, it makes it very difficult.
Yep.
When you're doing something that's really doing good for people.
Right. Yep. But there are a variety of people, many people out there who listen to this, hear it, and sense the substance to it, and have lent their signature to it. I've gathered over 3,000 signatures in support of the bill, and that is just in western Massachusetts alone, from eastern edge of Worcester County going all the way to the New York border. So a fair number of signatures, and we've had a very nice response. We've got all the legislators in Berkshire County and Franklin County, most of them in Hampshire County, and now a couple in Hamden County and in Worcester County. So it's coming along
awesome.
nicely. Yep.
If I hadn't met you, I wouldn't have had a clue about this.
Yep.
And of course, I believe there are no coincidences. You're supposed to be here today on this program because it's another avenue to generate interest and support.
Well, I appreciate that.
Oh, but what are the steps now for our audience and for us who really care about what's happening to the environment? Are you still collecting petition signatures? Are you reaching out?
Well, I had been collecting them primarily at farmers markets, and of course the farmers markets are closed for the season.
Yeah.
So I'm not really gathering any signatures at this particular point. In fact, it's kind of it's an interesting fact that in a 2-year session of the legislature, by February, March, April-ish of the second year, whatever you're going to submit as evidence or information has to be submitted. So doing farmers markets again next year is not really doable. So I'm not anticipating really gathering any more petition signatures. I'm happy to make presentations. I just went to Auburn last night and made a presentation to the select board there. I'm happy to, go to other communities where a group of 10, 15 people want to hear more about this. More than happy to go and meet with them. I have an email address, paintcareforma@yahoo.com.
Which we will be showing on our screen or
Okay.
on our show.
Yep.
Will be shown at the end also, and also contact information for you. And I certainly would hope that if you would like, you would use Solutions Rising as another way to send the link to people who might want to hear more about the background. It's absolutely one of the things that I'm really happy about to be able to do
Sure.
with Solutions Rising.
Absolutely.
So if now, for people who are watching, for our audience, what can they do? Is this time to be calling legislators, or
Absolutely.
what can they do that is not signing petitions right now?
Sure. They can call their legislator, and if they're like most, myself included, before I got involved in this, I wasn't clear on who my senator and my representative are. I've heard of names, but are they particularly mine or not? So the best way to figure that out is to go to a website that it's simple name, Find My Legislator in Massachusetts. And a screen pops up where you can enter in your town. And sometimes if you're in a large city like Worcester, you have to put in your address because there could be 4 or 5 representatives covering one city. Springfield is another example. And in that case, you have to put in your street address, but then you hit the enter button and up pops, who is my representative, who's my senator. If you click on their image, then it will give you their telephone number and their email address. And, with that, you either call them or email them and say to them, hey, I'm really concerned about my environmental issues, and I would really love you to support the paint recycling law that's being brought before the legislature at the moment.
Is there also a way that you can have all the representatives and senators advised, or do you suggest it's better to just go to the one who covers your own area?
The representatives, senators like to hear from their constituents. They
Oh,
feel their job
touche.
is to take care
Yeah.
of their constituent. And interestingly, what I learned is if I want to get another representative on board, I should go through my representative to communicate to that representative.
Little decorum there, little
Right.
diplomacy necessary to
It's
reach.
it's the rules,
Yeah.
so that's fine. I certainly did not know that myself before getting involved with this, but hopefully that's helpful. But if the folks just reach out to their particular representative and senator and say, hey, I'm interested, by either phone or by email, and they share it with their neighbors and have some of their neighbors reach out, because it's a numbers game, honestly.
Yes, it is, and that's how you get votes.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate, but that's one of the ways we have to do it. But you
Right.
do as many ways as you can, talking, petitioning, and then going to your elected officials, expecting them to take care of our environment, take care of our home, take care of our children.
There's
cleaning
a
up.
tremendous amount of pent-up desire to do the right thing with paint, as evidenced by the fact that the paint stores that are just across the border in states that already have the law, a fair portion of the paint that's returned to their stores is from Massachusetts residents. So
Oh.
there's a lot of pent-up desire in the state for this. This isn't just something that I don't know what it'll really fly. People are already trying to do that.
But that's something good for our audience to know, is that our disposable paint, recyclable paint, ought not to be going to New York. We should be taking care of that right here in our backyard, which also saves transportation costs. And
Right.
so
Take care of our own laundry.
You bet. It's in our backyards. So this is just incredible. And as we were talking, as we were preparing our program, this leads into people thinking, oh, if they could do it with paint, gee, we could do this with, and there must be a whole list of
Yep.
things that this.
Things like Mattresses is the next thing in line. Just, it's all packaged up and ready to go. It's already functioning in Connecticut and Rhode Island as well. In fact, I should mention the fact that paint is already in Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maine, Vermont, and New York.
Paint recycling?
Yep, the paint law is already in all of those states. And mattresses are already in Connecticut and Rhode Island, so we don't have to go improve it. We just can take their particular law, implement it in our state, and take advantage of it. And these laws, in the case of paint, it's 75 cents a can when you purchase it. And when the mattress law goes through, it'll be about $18 or $20 maybe, somewhere in that vicinity when you purchase your mattress, and that takes care of all the costs of disposal, so you don't have to pay a dime when it comes to disposing of your mattress. And other EPR laws like solar panels, same idea. I think it's going to be $15 or $20 per extra, but it's, you know, small change in terms of the total cost of the mattress or the solar panel.
And what comes back, yeah.
Yep, and so
And of course, I would never, part of this whole discussion today is to bring up things we wouldn't think about. And when I saw mattresses, I thought, mattresses? What do you do with mattresses? So you have really today brought an extremely important discussion for our audience, and I am truly grateful, Dr. Tom Irwin, for your coming to Solutions Rising, and I hope you will be a guest again. I'm sure we can continue this in other arenas, because I think we are both very much on the same page about caring about our environment and wanting to save it for the children and those to follow. Thank you very
Rachel.
much for being a guest. And if each one of us picked up one problem and solved it, imagine the incredible view we would all have of Solutions Rising. I hope you learned a great deal today and you will be part of the solution. And again, I thank Dr. Tom Irwin for joining us on Solutions Rising and bringing us so much very valuable and necessary information for saving our environment. Thank you.